The fire alarm screams through the biomedical wing, a red pulse that drills straight into Ella Cole's skull. Strobe lights flash along the ceiling. A strip of warning text crawls across the monitors. Emergency containment failure. Ella yanks off her safety goggles and leans over the stainless steel bench. The glass culture dish in front of her trembles in its metal holder, thin green liquid climbing the sides. "Do not you dare foam over," she mutters. "I am not rewriting 3 months of data because you decide to explode." She taps in neutralizing solution. For a heartbeat the liquid calms. Then the extractor hood coughs once and dies. The sweet scent hits her instantly. Warm sugar, crushed flowers, something that lands straight in her bloodstream. Ella's head swims. She slams the big red emergency button on the wall. Metal shutters slam over the windows. The corridor door locks with a hiss. The alarm shifts into a slow, pulsing siren. Biohazard lockdown. A mechanical voice booms from the ceiling. Containment protocol activated. All personnel must remain in current location. Fantastic. Ella mutters. Friday night date with experimental plant aphrodisiac. Her badge vibrates. She checks the broken vial on the floor, and her stomach drops. Prototype P17. Preliminary animal data suggests dramatic effects on emotional regulation, which is the polite way of saying the mice desperately tried to romance their own reflections for 4 hours. She drags on a spare mask, knowing it is useless, and heads for the security panel. Her cheeks burn, her pulse thunders. Footsteps pound down the hallway. Everyone else left an hour ago. These steps are too hard, too fast. Who is out there? She calls. The floor is sealed. Someone slams into the outer door. Through the narrow reinforced window she sees a blur of black suit and white shirt, one hand flat on the glass. For a second their eyes meet. Pale, icy blue, shockingly clear even in the flashing red light. Lex Walker. Ella has seen his picture on too many financial magazines to mistake him. Walker Group's infamous Ice King. The man gossip blogs insist is cursed, rumored sterile, incapable of giving the family an heir. Tonight he is drenched, breath harsh, shirt torn, and soaked dark at one side. Blood, rain, trouble. Open the door, he says through the glass, voice rough. I cannot, she says. Lockdown. It is sealed. Someone else hits the door from the outside. A dull thud, then an ugly voice. Lex, you cannot run forever. A man calls. Walk out and sign the papers like a good boy. Lex. He really is Lex Walker. And men with power tools are trying to carve him open in her hallway. Ella hits the emergency override anyway. The panel blinks useless red. He glances back at the corridor, jaw tight. Your containment system. How strong is it? Triple reinforced. She says faintly. Vacuum seal. Good. He mutters. Then he raises his elbow and slams it into the glass. Stop. Ella yelps. That panel costs more than my car. The first hit spiderwebs the surface. The second drives cracks through the pane. The third sends shards raining inward. The alarm jumps pitch again, protesting the breach. Cold air and wet asphalt stink blast into the lab, swirling the sweet scent higher. Ella staggers. Lex climbs through in one painful motion. Up close he is terrifying. Tall, broad-shouldered, shirt plastered to a chest built of steel, blood seeping through the torn fabric at his side. Stay away from me, she says automatically. He looks at the broken vial, and the shimmering puddle of green on the floor. What is that? Neuromodulator, she says. It lowers inhibitions. Makes you want things. Of course that is what is in the air. Someone outside starts up a saw. Metal screams. Lex drags a stool under the broken window, trying to jam it. It will not hold long. His eyes flick back to Ella. Her pupils are wide. Her breathing is too fast. You all right? He asks. No, she says through clenched teeth. I am high on my own research, and trapped in a sealed room with a bleeding billionaire and amateur assassins. This is the opposite of all right. He almost smiles. Almost. Where is your safest spot? She points to the narrow blind corner behind the largest incubator. He moves in an instant, grabbing a clean lab coat, shrugging it on over his ruined shirt, and ducking into the space. Ella yanks a rolling freezer half an inch to give him room. They end up pressed together, his chest a wall of heat against her front, the metal cabinet cold at her back. This is a terrible idea, she whispers. Probably, he says, low. The saw chews through the final layer of metal. The outer door crashes inward. 2 men in cheap suits stomp into the lab, one with a gun, one with the saw. Hey, lab girl, gunman says. You seen a guy in a suit run through here? Ella's heart hammers. She forces her voice to steady. We are in lockdown, she says. Nobody gets in without clearance. Man smirks. Looks like somebody did. Gunman eyes her flushed face, the useless mask, the broken vial. Containment failed. He says slowly. Cute. He steps closer. Ella backs up without thinking. Lex's hand settles at her waist to steady her. The contact sends heat across her skin. Do not. Lex murmurs under his breath, words for her alone. Do anything stupid. You are bleeding in my blind spot. She whispers back. We have passed stupid. Gunman lifts the weapon toward the incubator. If Lex Walker is in here, he says, I am going to drag him out over your dead body. Lex goes still behind her, his fingers tighten. Ella's brain runs the math, and does not like any outcome. Nobody shoots in my lab. She hears herself say, you hit one vial wrong, and we all go down, including the people paying you. The men hesitate. They may be idiots, but they are not eager to die by unknown chemical. We sweep and go. Man says finally. Boss does not pay extra for science experiments. They stomp around the room, knock over a tray, curse at the equipment. The air grows hotter, thicker. Ella feels the compound crawling under her skin, amplifying fear and something darker. By the time the fire alarms from the rest of the building finally send real security their way, Ella's strength is gone. The last thing she trusts is her own body. Later she remembers flashes. Lex's arm braced above her head as they squeeze farther into the blind corner. The scrape of his shoes as he shifts to keep both of them hidden. The way his breath stutters when her hip bumps his. The chemical fog does the rest. When she wakes hours later, the lab is a wreck, the shutters are open, the emergency lights off. The intruders are gone. Security reports will later say they fled when the sirens closed in. On the narrow lounge chair in the corner, Ella lies tangled in a ruined lab coat and an emergency blanket. Her muscles ache in ways that leave no doubt about what happened in the blur between terror and survival. The man who crashed into her life is gone. On the back of a chair hangs a black suit jacket, still faintly warm. On the floor beside it lies a single silver cuff link engraved with a tiny W. Ella picks it up with shaking fingers. You have got to be kidding me, she whispers. She shoves the cuff link into her pocket, wraps the jacket around herself, and slips out before anyone can ask questions. She has no idea that in another part of the city, a wounded billionaire is waking in an ambulance, furious at betrayal, and haunted by the memory of a stubborn woman in a lab coat. And that both of their lives have just been rewritten. 3 months later, Ella stares at the ultrasound monitor and forgets how to breathe. The clinic room is dim. The gel on her belly is cold. The sonographer moves the probe, frowning in concentration. There we are. The woman says, voice soft. Do you see this little blinking light? That is the baby? Ella asks, throat thick. That is baby A. The sonographer says. She shifts the probe. Another flicker appears, just as fast. And this is baby B. Ella blinks. Baby. She says slowly. As in a plural? Twins. The woman confirms, smiling. Congratulations. Twins. Ella drops her head back and stares at the ceiling. She survived a biohazard lockdown, a break-in, and a chemical storm, only to be taken down by 2 blinking dots on a screen. The sonographer prints images and hands them over, then launches into talk about vitamins and appointments. Ella nods at all the right times. None of it feels real until she sits in her car, closes the door, and lets herself gasp. Twins. She tells the steering wheel. I do not even own a plant I have not killed. Her phone buzzes. Work again. She ignores it and scrolls her news feed instead, desperate for something ordinary. A headline stops her cold. Ice King under family fire. Walker heir still childless at 30. Ella taps the article with numb fingers. The photo is a familiar stone townhouse. Out front, an elegant older woman rants to cameras, pearls flashing, eyes sharp. Lex is wasting his life. The caption quotes her. No wife, no children, what is the point? If he cannot provide an heir, he should step aside. Behind her stands a younger man with slicked back hair and a practiced smile. Brandon Walker, the caption says. Possible successor. Ella looks from the photo to the ultrasound print in her lap. 2 small shapes float in the darkness. Well, she whispers. This is awkward. She knows the rumor. Everyone does. Some old accident, some misdiagnosis, some whispered report about low chances of children. It turned into cruel jokes on magazine covers and comments sections. Now she has proof that rumor is wrong growing under her ribs. She drives home on autopilot. Her tiny Brooklyn apartment, looks even smaller than usual when she steps inside and drops onto the couch. The black jacket still hangs on the back of her bedroom door. She has tried a dozen times to figure out how to return it. There is no polite way to message a billionaire and say, "Hi, your cufflink knocked me up, please advise." She pulls the small silver piece from the jar where she keeps spare keys and balances it on her palm. "You are very bad life planning," she tells the tiny W. "You should know that." Across town, in a glass tower that sparkles over Midtown, Lex Walker sits at the head of a sleek conference table and pretends to care about a quarterly report. His aunt, Martha, interrupts with a smile that could cut steel. "Lex, we are worried," she says. "You work too much. No wife, no children. Investors ask questions. About my personal life," he says flatly. "About the future," she corrects. "Brand continuity. Legacy. If you cannot provide an heir, the board has to think about succession." Brandon cuts in smoothly from his chair near the window. "I am always happy to help the family." Lex feels pressure building behind his eyes. He has heard some version of this speech for 10 years, ever since a doctor in a cold exam room gave him a percentage so close to zero it felt like a sentence. There had been a fiancé then, a ring, whispered apologies, rumors that grew teeth. "Legacy will be handled," he says, voice like ice. "You worry about your own audit results." Martha's smile flickers. "I am just saying." His phone buzzes on the table. His head of security. The only man allowed to interrupt him in a meeting with that tone. Lex stands. "We will continue this later," he says, and does not wait for anyone to argue. In his office, he closes the door and hits the speaker button. "Tell me something good," he says. "Good or interesting?" Security asks. "I will take interesting. We flagged a paternity test with your marker this week," the man says. "It ran twice at a private clinic in Queens. Same result both times." Lex leans on his desk. "Go on." "It is a match, boss. 99 point a lot of nines. Mother is Ella Cole." The name hits like a physical blow. He sees a lab red lights. A woman in a too big lab coat standing between him and armed men, eyes bright with fury even while drugged. "You are sure?" he asks. "Document is in your inbox," security says. Also, the ultrasound report says twin intrauterine pregnancy, 12 weeks. Twins. The word echoes in Lex's skull, shattering 10 years of certainty. He opens the document. His own name stares back at him next to hers in sterile fonts. Confirmed paternity. 2 fetal heartbeats. The air seems thinner. "That doctor was wrong," he says quietly. "Looks like it," security says. "What do you want to do?" Lex feels something crack open inside his chest. For years he built walls. He filled his life with numbers and deals and power moves, convincing himself he did not need anything else. He let other people's gossip define him, because it was easier than fighting every lie. Now the proof is right in front of him, printed in black and white. "I want to meet her," he says. "Today." Security does not sound surprised. "Already found her. Research park in the suburbs. Prefers late nights. Lives in Brooklyn. Drives a hatchback that needs brakes." Lex grabs his suit jacket from the back of his chair, pulse pounding. "Get the car," he says. "And send Aunt Martha a message. Tell her I will be late to dinner because I am busy continuing the Walker line." He almost laughs at his own joke, a wild, disbelieving sound. For the first time in years, the word future does not taste like obligation. It tastes like possibility. 2 tiny heartbeats. And one stubborn scientist who has no idea her life is about to be invaded by the man the world calls cursed. Ella is elbow deep in mouse cages when the lab door swings open. "We are in active protocol," she snaps without looking up. "You cannot just walk in, the paperwork alone." "I will handle the paperwork," a man says. His voice is smoother than she remembers, less ragged, but just as deep. Her spine locks. She turns. Lex Walker stands in the doorway, suit immaculate, hair tamed, eyes exactly as cold and sharp as they were under red siren light. 2 large men in dark shirts take up positions in the hallway, pretending to be potted plants and failing. Ella drops a bag of bedding. It bursts in a small shower of sawdust. "We are a controlled facility," she says, proud her voice mostly works. "You need clearance to be here. I own the building," he says calmly. Indirectly. Of course he does. She peels off her gloves and wipes her hands on her lab coat, buying time. "What do you want, Mr. Walker?" she asks. His gaze drops, for the first time, to her stomach. The lab coat is loose, but not that loose. At 16 weeks the bump is obvious if you know to look. His expression cracks. That is mine. He says, voice rough. Heat floods her face. Medically speaking, they are ours. She corrects. Genetically. Legally we have not signed anything. His eyes flick back up. Something like relief and awe wore on his face, then reorganize into control. You know? He asks. About me. I saw your name on a piece of paper I never wanted to see, she says. And on every financial magazine for the last decade. I also saw your aunt screaming at reporters. We need to talk. We do. He agrees. Not here. I am working, she says. Mice need enrichment too, you know. I will buy them a bigger playground. He says. Lunch. Across the courtyard. Public place, you can leave whenever you want. She hesitates. Every survival instinct tells her to run. Every reasonable neuron reminds her that there are two tiny people inside her who are going to ask questions one day. Fine. She says. 1 hour. No kidnapping. I do not kidnap scientists. He says. Bad for business. She snorts despite herself. At the cafe, the hostess nearly swallows her tongue when she recognizes Lex. He requests a quiet corner. Ella orders grilled cheese, soup, and enough fries for 3 people. He orders a salad and coffee. You will regret that, she says, eyeing his plate. I will eat your fries. You are eating for 3. He says. You can have my fries. The casual way he says it hits something inside her. She picks up a fry, stalling. For the record, she says. I was keeping them, the babies, whether you showed up or not. I know, he says. I saw the note you left at the clinic. Her eyes narrow. You hacked my medical file. I did not hack anything, he says. My company runs their data security. We flagged any sample with my genetic marker after the attack. I still should have asked. I am sorry. The apology throws her more than the surveillance. You actually mean that, she says slowly. I mean several things, he says. First, I am not here to buy you off. I will not offer you a house in the suburbs in exchange for disappearing. Second, I want to be part of their lives. Not as a distant bank account. As a father. She nearly chokes on a fry. You and I met once, she says. Under chemical influence. We do not know each other. True, he says. I know a few things. You stood between armed men and your work. You did not sell this story to the press. You have not shown up at my office with a lawyer and a stroller. I have a sense of dignity, she mutters. I see that, he says, mouth twitching. So here is what I am proposing. Co-parenting. Full financial support, obviously. So much support you never have to worry about a bill again. But also presents, appointments, birth, diapers, midnight feedings. I want all of it. She studies him. This is not how billionaires behave in the cautionary tales, she says. I have already lived the cautionary tale, he says quietly. 10 years of believing I was broken, letting people like my aunt weaponize that story. I am done hiding from my own biology. Her eyes sting. Hormones, she tells herself. And the way he keeps glancing at her stomach with something that looks dangerously like wonder. There will be rules, she says. Boundaries. You do not get to show up at my apartment at 2 in the morning because you had a feeling. I can work with rules, he says. List them. We tell my parents together, she says first. You do not get to dodge that. He blinks. Your parents, he repeats. In Queens, she says. My mother will cry for 20 minutes, then feed you until you explode. My father will clean his frying pan like he is evaluating your skull size. You will answer every question honestly. He actually looks nervous for the first time. I fought a hostile takeover last week, he says. This sounds worse. It is, she says. If you survive them, we talk about living arrangements. And no, you do not just move me into your penthouse like furniture. Would you like a house near your lab? He asks. Closer to your parents? With space for 2 nurseries and a home office. She opens her mouth to protest, then closes it again. Slow down, she says. You are trying to fix 10 years of emotional damage with real estate. He laughs, a startled sound that softens his face. Therapy is working on the damage, he says. Real estate is for convenience. She gapes. You go to therapy? Every Tuesday, he says. My therapist says I should practice vulnerability. You are doing a terrifyingly good job, she says. Silence stretches between them, full but not sharp. Okay, she says finally. We try this. Co-parenting. You come to appointments. You help pick names. You get to change diapers when they explode at 3 a.m. No guarantees beyond that. Relief flickers over his features, quick and fierce. I will take it, he says. She points a fry at him. If you bail, she says, I will re-engineer that plant compound to only target people named Lex. I believe you, he says. More than I believe most market forecasts. Under the table her ankle brushes his. Neither of them moves away. Ella's birth plan is 3 pages long and color-coded. Reality shows up at 3 in the morning and laughs at it. The first contraction rips through her lower back like a hot band. She checks the time, tries to breathe, and tells the twins firmly. Not today. We had a schedule. The next wave hits 6 minutes later. By the time Lex gets her into the car, the contractions are 4 minutes apart, and she is swearing at every red light in New York. If you honk at that old lady one more time, I am naming both babies after my ex, she says through gritted teeth. You do not have an ex, he says, taking a corner too fast. I will find one, she snaps. In triage the nurse checks her and raises her eyebrows. You are at 6 centimeters, she announces. You are not going anywhere. I would like drugs, Ella says politely. All of them. Hours blur. Lex holds her hand through every contraction. He breathes when she forgets how. He argues with a resident about the timing of the epidural, with the same calm intensity he once used in mergers. When the anesthesiologist finally arrives, Ella could weep with gratitude. You are my favorite man, she tells him. Lex looks wounded. I am literally right here. You did not bring the needle, she says. He takes the insult, because in this room she outranks everyone. When the first baby finally arrives, the world shrinks to the outraged cry that fills the room. Meet Ryan, the nurse says, placing a tiny, furious, perfect human on Ella's chest. Ella laughs and sobs at once. Lex's breath hitches. He touches their son's cheek like he is afraid he will break. A few minutes later, their daughter slips into the world quieter, eyes wide and startlingly focused. Ellie, Ella whispers when the nurse hands her over. Hi, little Sunday. Lex looks at his daughter and feels something in his chest surrender completely. There are APGAR scores and weight measurements and a brief flurry when Ryan refuses to stop yelling. Ellie curls against Ella's collarbone like she already knows where home is. Later, when the room is finally quiet, Ella lies propped up against pillows, twins swaddled in her arms. She is exhausted, sore, and so in love she could combust. I pushed 2 people out of my body, she warns Lex. You are not allowed to win arguments for at least 5 years. 10, he says immediately. She smiles, eyes drifting closed. He watches the 3 of them until his vision blurs. The next morning, chaos knocks on the door in heels. Martha arrives with a photographer. I am family, she tells the nurse at the desk. Of course I can go in. The world deserves to see the miracle. Lex hears her voice and stands so fast his chair tips. Stay here, he tells Ella. She tightens her hold on the babies. Do not let her touch them, she says. Never, he says. He steps into the hallway and closes the door behind him. Aunt Martha, he says. You are not welcome here. She bristles. Do not be ridiculous, she snaps. I brought a photographer. The market will love this. Lex Walker, cured at last. You pose with the twins, tell a heartwarming story, the share price jumps. You are talking about my children like they are ad campaigns, he says quietly. I am talking about the company, she says. Which you say will belong to those babies one day. Investors need reassurance. If you hide them, people will wonder if they are even yours. Lex's smile has no humor. DNA answers that, he says. I would be careful about who invites tests around here. Color drains from her face for a moment before she recovers. You cannot keep this secret, she insists. Secrets invite rumors. You started the rumor, he says. You leaked my medical report. You turned a misdiagnosis into a weapon. She lifts her chin. I did what I had to for the family. You did what you had to for your son, he corrects. And he still almost tanked a major deal. The photographer shifts his weight, sensing the tension. Lex does not raise his voice. He does not have to. You will leave, he says. Without photos. If any image from this floor reaches the press, I will tie it legally to you. I have the paper trail. This is your only warning. Martha opens her mouth, sees the look in his eyes, and snaps it shut. You will regret this, she says, spinning away. I already regret being related to you, he replies. His security chief materializes at the end of the hall as the photographer lingers. Escort him out, Lex says. If he sells so much as a blurry hallway shot, I want his camera, his car, and his retirement account. Gladly, security says. When Lex goes back in, Ella is awake and furious on the bed. I heard shouting. She says. Is she suing me for corrupting your bloodline? She will be too busy being sued herself. He says. I am done letting her play games with our names. He reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out a small velvet box. Ella narrows her eyes. If you propose to me in a hospital gown, I swear. Not that. He says quickly. Not yet. He opens the box. 2 simple rings lie inside. Contract rings. He says. We wear them as long as it takes to figure everything else out. Legal, financial, practical alliance. They tell the world we are a unit. You decide later if you want the big dress and cake version. She stares. You think jewelry will stop your aunt? She asks. No. He says. But a ring plus a press conference will. She almost laughs. Of course you want a press conference. She says. Do we stand on a stage under a Walker Group logo and announce we accidentally made twins? Something like that. He says. On our terms. No baby photos. No hospital footage. Just us saying the rumor is dead and we decide who gets access to our family. She looks at the rings again. They are plain. She says. We can upgrade. He says softly. If you want to. Her heart does an uncomfortable flip. Fine. She says, holding out her hand. Contract me. He slides the smaller band onto her finger. It fits like it was made for her. His breath stutters. He slides the other ring onto his own hand. Okay. She says. Let us go bury a rumor. 2 days later, under studio lights, Ella sits on a stool in a simple dress, hair pinned up, contract ring glinting. Lex stands beside her, all dark suit and controlled energy. Thank you for coming. He tells the reporters. I asked you here to make 3 things clear. 1. The story about my supposed infertility was based on a misdiagnosis and a breach of privacy. 2. That breach came from inside my own family and is under legal review. 3. My partner and I recently welcomed twins. They are healthy, loud, and the best thing that has ever happened to me. A murmur ripples through the room. Ella lifts her microphone. My name is Ella Cole. She says. I am a senior researcher at a Walker Group partner lab. A few months ago I survived a very bad night with Mr. Walker. We also made a very good mistake. Laughter breaks the tension. Our children will not be public mascots. She continues. They are infants, not stock tickers. We ask that you respect their privacy. Any questions about their parentage can be directed to the paternity test, which I assure you was very clear. A reporter raises a hand. Miss Cole, are you saying the infertility rumor was a lie? Yes. She says. It was wrong and weaponized. The fact that someone tried to use it to push my partner out of his own company tells you everything you need to know about their character. Another asks who that someone is. Lex smiles, sharp. Watch the next shareholder report. He says. You will notice a few familiar names missing. In a townhouse across town, Martha stares at the broadcast and feels the ground shift under her feet. In a quiet apartment in Brooklyn, an empty lab coat hangs on a hook next to 2 baby carriers. The rumor that once defined a man's life has just been buried on live television. The world does not know it yet, but the real story is only starting. 3 years later, the boardroom that once echoed with whispers about Lex Walker's defective bloodline now hums with the muffled sound of children's laughter through a muted security feed. On the corner monitor, Ryan sits on the rug of Lex's office, stacking blocks into precise towers. Ellie sprawls beside him in a tutu over leggings, smacking 2 plush dinosaurs together and narrating their romance in nonsense syllables. The directors pretend not to watch the screen. They fail. This line item, an older director says, tapping the security budget, is for additional home monitoring. Threats have increased since we pressed charges against certain relatives. Lex says. We found drones near the nursery window. I am not interested in giving anyone second chances. No one argues. Martha and Brandon's mug shots in the news did most of the persuading. After the meeting, Lex slips back to his office, tie loosened, ring flashing. Ryan looks up, solemn. You late. He says. Board meeting went long. Lex says, scooping Ellie off the floor when she launches at his knees. Some people needed charts to understand basic security. Board bad. Ellie declares. She pats his face with sticky fingers. Some of them. Lex says. The rest just need naps. Ella appears from behind his desk, hair up, tablet in hand. I heard that. She says. I am on 3 of your boards. You are the exception. He says quickly. She smirks and kisses his cheek anyway. They migrated most of her work to a lab space inside Walker Group headquarters after the twins were born, partly for convenience, partly so Lex could stop pacing holes in the carpet every time she commuted across town alone. Now her name has started to show up on grant announcements and journal covers next to phrases like breakthrough and innovative. He is as proud of those headlines as he is of the ones that call him ruthless genius. Journal called again. He says, handing her a coffee. They want your neuromodulator paper for a special issue. I told them to stop harassing me and email you. She blinks. They did. She says. I forgot to answer. Someone poured yogurt into my shoe this morning. Ellie hums innocently around her dinosaur. MRS. Cole shows up that evening with a casserole and a stack of wedding magazines. You have rings, fine. She says, flipping pages at the kitchen table while the twins chase Lex around the island. But you got married on paper in a courthouse. I want a dress, photos, cake. We had an excellent courthouse. Ella protests. The judge had a Star Wars mug. It does not count if I was not there. Her mother says. You have a yard the size of a park, use it. Lex leans in the doorway, contract ring now just a wedding band. A backyard wedding would be efficient. He says. Ella narrows her eyes. You just want to write off the string lights on your taxes. And see you in a dress that is not lab approved. He says. She flushes. You are getting smooth. She mutters. Therapy. He says. Highly recommend. Mr. Cole arrives with a toolbox and immediately goes to check the fence. That hinge squeaked last time. He tells Lex. If I can hear it, so can anyone else. Yes, sir. Lex says. The twins trail after him like ducklings. Ryan asks for the names of every tool. Ellie asks if every screw has a family. On the day of the backyard wedding, the manicured lawn looks nothing like the magazine spreads that used to feature it. There are folding chairs borrowed from the community center, paper lanterns strung between trees, and a long table groaning under food cooked by half of queens. Ella walks down a makeshift aisle in a simple cream dress that schemes her knees. She refuses a veil. Ryan marches ahead as a very serious ring bearer. Ellie scatters flower petals with more enthusiasm than aim. Lex waits under an arch wrapped in ivy, nerves fizzing under his ribs. He has closed billion-dollar deals with a steadier heartbeat than this. When Ella reaches him, the noise of the crowd fades. The officiant clears his throat. We are here. He begins. Because these two chose to do things out of order and still end up exactly where they belong. Everyone laughs. Ella takes Lex's hands. I never planned on marriage, she says. I planned on tenure and mice and plants that do not hate me. Then a man with a bad reputation and a worse wound crashed into my lab on the worst night of my life. You were infuriating, arrogant, and very bad at asking for help. More laughter. You let me yell at you. She continues. You went to therapy. You sat in my parents' kitchen and ate 3 helpings of lasagna, while my dad threatened you with a frying pan. You changed diapers at 3 in the morning without complaining. You believed in my work and my brain and my appetite. You stood between our children and anyone who tried to use them as leverage. I do not promise to be patient or neat, but I promise to keep choosing this family, even when the alarms go off. Lex swallows hard. I grew up in rooms where love was a bargaining chip. He says. Affection was something you could lose with one wrong move. I thought I was fine alone. Then you glared at a man with a gun and told him you would make sure his body never showed up on any official report if he touched your lab. You gave me 2 children who laugh like they invented sound. You gave me parents-in-law who call me out when I am being an idiot. You gave me a home that is more than square footage. I promise to keep doing the work. To keep learning how to be a partner, not just an emergency contact. To hold your hand when the fire alarms go off, literal or metaphorical. Mr. Cole sniffles loudly. Mrs. Cole hands him a tissue and sobs into her own. Ryan rolls his eyes, already perfecting his teenage exasperation. Ellie claps at random intervals. By the power vested in me by the state. The officiant says, smiling. And honestly, by those 2 small chaos goblins over there, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your scientist. Lex does. The cheer that goes up is loud enough to startle the birds from the trees. Later, as fairy lights glow over the lawn, and the twins fall asleep in a pile of cousins and blankets, Ella leans against Lex's shoulder and watches her parents dance on the grass. This is messy, she says. And loud. And not very glamorous. It is perfect, he says. He wraps an arm around her waist, holding his whole world in one palm. On the twins' third birthday, the internet finds out the hard way that some jokes expire. An old meme resurfaces first. Someone dredges up a decade-old tabloid cover of Lex's college face next to a cruel headline about empty cradles. They slap a new caption on it: "When you have billions but your family name is still in beta." It picks up likes from people who have not read the news in years. Within an hour, Walker Group's official account quote tweets it. "We would like to introduce our extremely out-of-beta legacy," the post reads. Under the text is a single photo Ella took that morning. Ryan and Ellie sit in the grass in paper crowns, faces smeared with frosting, surrounded by torn wrapping paper. Ryan's crown is crooked. Ellie's has slipped over one eye. They grin at the camera with matching dimples and absolutely no idea they are detonating a narrative. The internet melts. Comments pour in. "I would like to apologize to those kids' future therapists," one user writes. "Imagine growing up knowing you killed a decade-long rumor by existing." Another, "This is the first time I have seen a billionaire post his kids without turning them into a brand. They look like they just threatened each other with cake." Someone else, "Thoughts and prayers for the aunt who spread that infertility story. Hope the ankle monitor fits." Ella reads that one out loud while she flips pancakes. "People are savage," she says. "They are not wrong." Lex replies, pouring juice. And the legal department cleared the photo. No faces on any billboards. Biometric data scrambled 6 ways. For once, social media can do something useful. "I thought we were keeping them offline," she says. "We talked about choice," he says. "When they are older, they decide how much of themselves to share. For now, one birthday photo to shut down a cruel joke feels like a fair trade. Besides, I am petty. That part I believe," she says. The twins crash into the kitchen chasing a balloon. Ellie is in pajamas with unicorns. Ryan wears a t-shirt that says "future problem" and takes it very seriously. "Mommy," Ellie wails. "He stole my purple balloon. It floated to me." Ryan says with great dignity. "Physics. That is not how physics works," Ella says. "Yet," Ryan mutters. Grandparents arrive with presents and far too much food. The yard fills with kids and sprinklers and plastic dinosaurs. Someone sets up a tiny inflatable pool. Mr. Cole checks the fence again. MRS. Cole rearranges the snacks. Later, when the twins are busy trying to fit all their new toys into one wagon, Ella slips into her small office off the hallway. The space is cluttered now. Where there used to be neatly stacked research papers, there are crayon drawings of stick figure families labeled in wobbly letters. A framed ultrasound hangs next to a photo of newborn Ryan scowling and newborn Ellie yawning. On a small shelf, in a clear dish, sits a single silver cuff link. She never gave it back. Ella picks it up and rolls it between her fingers, the tiny W catching the light. "Look what you did," she tells it softly. "You say that like it is a bad thing," Lex says from the doorway. She smiles without turning. "You always find me," she says. "You are usually hiding somewhere with good lighting," he replies, crossing the room. He is in jeans and a soft t-shirt now, barefoot, hair mussed from a water gun attack. There is dried frosting on his forearm. He has never looked less like an untouchable billionaire. "You okay?" he asks. Ella shrugs. "Thinking," she says, "about how none of this was in my plan. I had a whole roadmap. Fellowships, tenure, maybe a cat, definitely not twins, a mansion full of relatives, and my mother arguing with your lawyer about flower arrangements." "You still have a roadmap," he says. "It just has more stops." "I still feel guilty sometimes," she admits, "about being this happy when the world is on fire, when people struggle and we are here arguing about whether the kids should learn piano or coding first. Happiness does not take anything away from anyone," he says. "What we do with our resources matters. We can fund scholarships, rebuild neighborhoods, support labs that actually help people instead of just making investors richer. But us laughing in our kitchen does not make the world worse." "You really have been doing the therapy," she says. "My therapist is delighted," he says. She says, "I have feelings now." She snorts. He sits on the desk beside her and takes the cuff link from her hand. "When I woke up after that night," he says, "I thought I had barely dodged one disaster. I did not know I had started a chain reaction. You could have kept this." He lifts the cuff link. "And never told me." "You did not. You checked the clinic records," she points out. "And you did not change your number when I called," he says. "You let me in. That is not nothing." Warmth spreads through her chest. Sometimes I still worry I will mess this up. She says quietly. The kids, us. I am good at experiments, not at feelings. He laughs softly. We are already messing up. He says. We let them eat cake before breakfast. We forget the permission slips until the last minute. We will say the wrong thing someday, and have to apologize. That is normal. The only thing we cannot do is disappear. She leans her head against his shoulder. You are not disappearing? She asks, already knowing the answer. He wraps an arm around her. Never. He says. You are stuck with me, Cole. Outside, someone starts the birthday song. The twins' voices rise above the others, shrill and delighted. Ella stands. Come on. She says. If I miss them blowing out candles, because I got sentimental over a cuff link, they will bring it up in therapy. Again with therapy. Lex says, following her out. We are going to single-handedly fund the entire industry. On the lawn, Ryan and Ellie stand on chairs in front of a cake shaped like a double helix. They clap as everyone sings, then inhale and blow. Wax, sugar, and spit go everywhere. Make a wish. Ella calls. More dinosaurs. Ryan shouts. More cake. Ellie yells at the same time. Lex slides an arm around Ella's waist. You know. He murmurs. When they were born, Ellie asked for a sister, and Ryan asked for a sparring partner. The universe might still be listening. Ella chokes on a laugh. You trying to talk me into more babies at a birthday party? Absolutely not. He says quickly. I am just saying if you ever decide you want to try, I am here. And if you decide these two are it, I am still here. She looks up at him, at the man who once believed he was cursed and now stands barefoot in the grass with cake on his arm and joy in his eyes. We will cross that bridge when we get there, she says. For now, we survive today without anyone sticking a fork in a socket. Ambitious. He says. They watch their children argue over who gets the bigger slice and who gets to hold the balloon string. The rumor that defined his 20s is now a screenshot people quote under photos of two messy, loud, brilliant kids. The curse turned into a punchline. In the fading light, with laughter in the air and frosting on the patio, Ella thinks about everything that had to go wrong for this to turn out right. A lab accident, a misdiagnosis, a night of terror, a very bad idea in a blind spot behind an incubator. It could have broken her. It could have killed him. Instead, somehow, it gave them this. Happy birthday, miracles. She whispers, too quiet for anyone but Lex to hear. He squeezes her hand. Happy ending. He says. Not ending. She corrects. Just a very good middle. He smiles. I can live with that. He says.
Thanks for watching. Follow for more romance stories.